Hey everybody, this is Sam with Paranormal Review. We are going to dive into It Feels Evil, Season 1, second episode, and it's called Dead on the Floor. Now, in my description that's on TV of where this is, it just says San Antonio, Texas. I really wish the Travel Channel would write better descriptions, I guess. This aired on December 21st, 2019. So fairly new. Why can they not put that this is about the Black Swan Inn? Most of us are aware of the Black Swan Inn. Other programs have went there. Podcasts have talked about it. Different people, if you're on any paranormal sites on the internet or in any paranormal type internet groups or Facebook groups or anything, there are always people around talking about the Black Swan Inn. And like I said, it's been on TV in different shows before. So why not draw people in with that? I hate that the Travel Channel just wants to put San Antonio, Texas. I don't understand why they do that. The other thing that I kind of want to rant about before we kind of get into the episode is, why are there only 3 episodes of It Feels Evil? Now, I'm not telling you that it is the best paranormal show on earth, or that the skeptic in me believes everything that it talks about or does or anything like that. But at least it's interesting and it's thought-provoking, and you actually watch it and wonder, what are they going to do next? Are they going to do an experiment? Are they going to, go to a different room? Are they going to try this? At least it's somewhat interesting. It's not total craziness or, trying to be funny when it's not, or something like that. Why did this only get 3 episodes? I can't imagine that that's what Tim Wood signed on for. So there's got to be more episodes somewhere. Where are they? Let's show them. If Travel Channel won't show them, let's get them on, FYI or some other channel. Heck, let's put them on VidiSpace. Where's Elizabeth Saint and Nick Groff? Can we get some more episodes of this on VidiSpace? Let's do something, because this is one of the better. This is a top half paranormal show. So I don't get it. So here fairly soon you'll be getting a paranormal review of episode 3, which is the last episode that aired on Travel Channel of It Feels Evil. Like I already said, it's season 1, it's episode 2, it's the second episode with this team, and it's called Dead on the Floor. It aired December 21st of 2019, and the show opens up with Joanne Riviera sending a video to Tim Wood, and she's talking about Victoria's Black Swan Inn in San Antonio, Texas. Now, she says it so fast that I don't actually even catch it. I heard Victoria, I heard Inn, but I didn't hear Black Swan. She said it extremely fast. And even though I rewound it 3 different times, Still couldn't hear it, and I thought, I'll catch it eventually, which I did. Probably a minute later, they actually showed a sign, and I was like, I've seen this place on TV. So I kind of got excited. But as Joanne is talking on video to Tim, she describes that she has several spirits that have been in this inn for quite a while, that they are friendly spirits, and that, that is the reason why a lot of guests come to visit or paranormal investigators rent it out, is because these are spirits that are okay being around people. But then she starts to describe how recently, she's kind of gotten this darker, oppressive spirit that has kind of been encouraging people to stay and talk to it. And she talks about going in, to a room, and it being the first time that she's ever felt fear in the inn. And she talks about the scrying room. It is a room that contains a closet, and she has set up an area where she has a mirror in it so that people can scry. And she says that in the main room, she feels like it's very, very intense, but when you go into the room where the mirror is, that it is even more intense. Now, this is where me being a paranormal skeptic, newbie, whatever you guys want to call me, comes into play. I have heard about scrying. I actually read about it in a fiction book, gosh, probably 10, 15 years ago, and didn't really realize that it was part of the paranormal. That's how new I was. Because when I was reading this, I actually thought the author probably made that up. I had no idea that it was actually a thing that people attempt to do. And that it is something that a lot of people almost enjoy doing. Now, probably about 4 years ago was when I became more aware that scrying in a mirror was more common paranormally than what I thought. And then, of course, I heard about Zach Bagans buying Bela Lugosi's mirror, and how people used to scry into it. And then, of course, I saw on his television episode where he was going through different objects, artifacts that he owned, him talking about it. And since then, through reading different websites and doing some research on this particular podcast, I know a little more about it. So I am not going to pretend that I'm an expert. And that's the reason why when we get to that part and we start talking about it, I'm going to ask you guys, feel free to write me at Paranormal Review Pod, that's singular, Paranormal Review Pod at gmail.com, or hit me up on Twitter or Facebook on Paranormal Review, because I really don't know a whole lot about it. So you guys can educate me as much as you want, because I don't really have that concept down. Have never tried it, never did it, or anything like that. So, back to the show. Tim says that he has no doubt that the Black Swan Inn is haunted. He talks about how there's a huge battlefield that was a major battlefield in the American Mexican War, and that it has history. The Black Swan Inn does have history, and it's known. He says that he's a little concerned that she's got a scrying room and doesn't know what could be summoned on accident or on purpose from there. And I think that was where I had an aha moment watching this and was like, oh, I may be interested in this. I was already interested. Like I said, I liked the team in the first episode. It was an interesting show. I enjoyed it. But when he started saying you could summon things through the mirror, I was like, now wait a minute. I don't know that I knew that. Or if I knew that, I don't know that I understood that the whole entire way. I thought that scrying was more people could see into the mirror and see different things happening, whether it be from the past or the future, or see spirits or entities. I didn't know that things could be summoned. And I definitely didn't know that they could be summoned accidentally. So I was like, oh, I'm a little interested. I'm a little intrigued. So we see our first timestamp then, and it's 9 a.m. and the team is down there and they're meeting with Joanne, and she tells them and starts talking to them about how she feels like this dark presence that she sent the video to Tim about is masculine, and she calls him he throughout and feels like he is oppressing the other spirits that are in the inn. Therefore, people who come back, or people like her that are used to being there quite frequently, are used to certain spirits being around or being able to interact with them, and they feel like, you know, this darker spirit that has shown up recently is almost scaring them off, kind of, you know, pushing them aside. She states that this spirit is very aggressive and can be sexual towards women, and she goes about saying that, you know, at one time she was sitting at a table and she got hit in the head. She said others, guests of hers, have gotten sick and threw up, and friends of hers have had issues. She also talks about how people just don't feel comfortable. That it is a feeling that when they start getting near things, that it overwhelms them almost. And she tells Tim, I want you to please isolate this dark spirit and that it needs to go. And I guess I shouldn't be, but I am a little shocked that she said that. Because, you know, through watching paranormal TV, or if you're a paranormal investigator, or if you're just something that likes haunted or scary or whatever, you know that there are all kinds of places located all over the United States, but all over the world, that are haunted, and they have spirits that make people uneasy, or push, shove, scratch, hit, whatever. And the owners don't want them to go in, because that's where they make their money. That's the attraction. You know, they want to rent it out to paranormal investigators that are going to be provocation. Sorry, can't talk tonight. And provoke these spirits to do things to them so that they can get evidence or get proof or whatever. So for Joanne to just come out and say, look, I want you to isolate this spirit and I want it to go. I want it out. Kind of was interesting to me. Surprised me. But then when I kind of stopped the TV and I thought, no, she owns the Black Swan Inn. It's known for having friendly spirits, if that's what you want to call them. And people are known to go there to have good interactions and communicate, feel things that they feel comfortable around so that they can have evidence or have an experience and it be a good experience, not something that is frightening to them or something that, they're going to have nightmares about for days to come. So I can now, after stopping it and kind of thinking, I was like, well, no wonder Joanne wants this spirit gone, because she's had several years of owning this property and experiencing the good side, if there is a good side of the paranormal. And of course she doesn't want herself or her friends or family or her guests around something that possibly could hurt them. So Tim, I don't know, he doesn't hide it very well. He kind of sends the team away so that he can talk to Joanne by himself. And he tells the team, hey, why don't you walk around the property, kind of see what you guys can feel, what you can see, what you can experience. And I'm going to kind of go into the end with Joanne. So we see Scott, Patrick, and Montana walking around, and as they come upon the barn, Montana immediately says, feeling a little something. And as they go in to what they're calling the barn area, Montana is getting nauseous and she's just not feeling great. And then, as she's telling them how she feels, the camera light that Scott is using goes out. And Montana is like, wait a minute. And there is a little bit of light where you can still see and hear her talking. And she immediately, authoritatively states that this is not going to scare her. They're not going to control her. They might as well just kind of back off. And we see another camera light go off, like it's got something almost to prove or something like that. Then they immediately jump to what Joanne calls the seance room, where people go to have seances. And Tim, as he comes in, realizes that, there's dolls in the room. And there is a doll specifically to his right as he walks into the room that is sitting on, I guess it's maybe a bookshelf dresser type area. And Tim says that he's finding it kind of hard to breathe. He has a recorder with him, so he decides to do an electronic voice session, an EVP session around the doll, because it's almost like Tim feels drawn to it. And he says, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. Now, Joanne talks about how a man comes probably once a week or so and comes into the room and has conversations with the doll, that he feels led to do this. And for some reason I wrote that down, because that was, I guess, a red flag to me. I don't know many adult men that, go someplace every week to talk to a doll. I find that a little unusual, a little weird. So I got down and continue to ponder that throughout the show. So, like I said, Tim was talking about, how he really felt like he was going to get sick. He was going to throw up. He then feels some cold air. And he decides to listen to the tape that he was recording. Tim at one point asks, what do you want us to do, or what do you think we should do? Something to that. I didn't write down the exact wordage. And on the tape, he hears "sit down." And then later, after another question he asks, he hears "demonic." And I just thought that was a little weird, because he's in this seance room that Joanne said made her feel uncomfortable, but it's not really the room that she has concerns about. It's not the scrying room. It's not the mirror room. So I think that was a little interesting and intriguing to me, as far as Tim goes into this room and immediately feels things. And like he said, or he says later in the show, he's been doing this for 25 years. And it was just a strange feeling that he had, And he asked Joanne, to go ahead and leave, that he wants to be alone, kind of get a feeling of what's going on. And while Tim is alone, he feels a scratching sensation on his neck that is not comfortable. We then jump back to the barn, where Montana has decided to be alone. She wants, whatever she is feeling in the barn, to know that it's not going to control her. It's not going to scare her. She is going to be who she is. She does say that out of the corner of her eye, she thought she saw a shadow. And she pans that way, and we don't see anything. She doesn't see anything. She decides to sit down, and she hears laughing. And she just kind of thought that was a little bit strange. Well, they then decide, and they show. If you haven't listened to the first episode about It Feels Evil, please go back and listen to that episode, because in that episode, Tim kind of describes how his protocol works when he goes out to investigate or kind of explore what is going on with a certain situation, and that he has 4 different phases that he likes to go through, with a purpose in each phase. So we see phase 1, the exploration phase, start, and we go back to Tim, where he feels something touch his neck, and he said he feels something, or he hears something audible, and he checks the tape and calls Joanne back, and he says, look, I really feel like you may have a demon here. And he said he heard a growl, he's heard some laughter, and that he wants to put a static camera, which is a stationary camera, actually in this room in order to catch it. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. You know that if you've listened to any previous episodes about me being a skeptic and everything. And I think it has to do with Ghost Adventures. I'm just going to be real honest with you guys. Ghost Adventures that I've watched since the beginning, I, for some reason, picked it up in the beginning, has steadily become, instead of Ghost Adventures and everything that I loved about it in the first, 9 seasons, 10 seasons, it has basically become Demon Hunters here recently, and it drives me crazy. I feel like Zach is always looking for demons everywhere he goes, and any story he hears, he automatically just jumps to demons. And I feel like a lot of places that they've went in the last couple seasons really have nothing to do with demons. And I almost feel like he's doing it to get ratings. I hated his movie, The Demon House. So when I hear Tim say, I think you may have a demon, that's where my mind immediately goes is, oh my God, are we going here? But then I have to catch myself and reel myself back in that this is not Zach. That there's 3 episodes of this show, and that for some reason Travel Channel hasn't continued to show it, and I don't really know or understand. And so I have to kind of reel myself back in and say, no, this is not the same team. And I have to remind myself, no, Tim Wood, whether he's real, he's fake, he's doing this for ratings and entertainment, or whether he's doing this to actually truly get to the bottom of this, that he has a protocol, and we're following this. Let's let this show be interesting, be entertaining, and kind of go from there. So I'm like, okay, let's figure out what's going on. And then I also remember, Joanne, if there's something going on, wants it removed. So we're actually going to see something different than what Ghost Adventures does. Because I've yet to see Ghost Adventures remove anything. Yes, I know they call the bishop in, and he removes things. But I've yet to see Ghost Adventures actually do anything. But anyway, they go in to the scrying room. And I know I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, but Tim says there is a psychomantrum in there. And they put the definition up, and he talks a little bit about that, that it's a small room that has a mirror that is specifically used for spirit communication. And while the team is kind of talking about this, Tim says, I need to get out of here. My neck is burning. I need to take a break. And the team kind of decides to go with him. And Tim continues and says, look, I am getting super nauseous. I feel like I'm getting very sick. Montana then checks his neck and says, look, you're getting a red mark that is showing up a little bit behind your ear. And so they decide, hey, I think we need to get a little bit further away from the inn, a little bit further away from, where Tim got scratched. So we get another timestamp, and it's 11 a.m., and they go into the backyard, and Tim kind of fills the team in, and he feels like there's something demonic going on at this location, and he tells them in all sincerity that he feels like, we really need to be cautious, and that I would like to call in another person. I would like to call in an expert, Michael Esposito, and that he's an EVP expert, and he wants him to use him in order to get better sound, better communication, better evidence, and almost better proof to show Joanne and also, I guess, our TV audience. And he has a lot of experience with the paranormal. And so they call in Michael, and it doesn't say when he arrives. However, when he does arrive, Michael talks about how he would like to increase the frequency energy. And what he means by that, it's almost like putting a big battery in the room. We've seen this on different paranormal TV shows, them increasing energy. We have seen, Paranormal Lockdown do that. We've seen, I believe Portals to Hell has done that. I believe Ghost Nation has done that once. And I know that Ghost Hunters, the new one with just Graham Wilson, has done that with a Jacob's Ladder. So, hearing this didn't shock me. However, it's almost like Tim was like, wait a minute here. We need to check this. He immediately asked, how's this going to affect this negative energy? And Michael very nonchalantly almost says, hey, it's going to affect anything, whether it be positive, whether it be negative, and it's just going to build up the energy. And Tim kind of hesitates, like, I don't know about this. So he tells Michael what his idea, I think before Michael even got there, is that he is wanting to put Patrick, who used to be a police officer, a crime scene investigator, used to do forensic evidence and really deals in, I guess, scientific matters, and wants hard proof of things. He wants to put Patrick in the scrying closet area with the mirror as Michael ramps this energy up. And for the first time, we see Michael kind of get a little uneasy. And his comment is, well, yeah, that's your call. It's a little dicey, but it's your call. And when he does that, it's almost like it makes Tim's mind up, because phase 2 of Tim's protocol is documentation. And I know that that's probably where his mind immediately went, was, if I put the most skeptic of us, which is Patrick, in this room as Michael ramps this energy and something happens, then that will make us look more credible, and I, meaning Tim, will be able to know what we're dealing with and how to proceed. So, like I said, they immediately go into phase 2, which is their documentation phase. They decide as a team that Patrick is going to go in the scrying room. Montana is actually going to monitor activity at their base and be looking at cameras to make sure everybody is okay. And then Scott is going to go into the barn and use provocation. And then Michael and Tim are going to be amplifying energy towards Patrick. Now, this is also where they explain to Scott that when he goes into the barn, they want him to take any energy that he feels in the barn or that they felt earlier and send that also into the main inn towards Patrick. So we get our timestamp of 12:05, and Scott is entering the barn, and he says that he immediately just feels uneasy, and he immediately basically is saying that I want anything in here to go towards Patrick. He also talks about how using provocation that he wants them to go scratch Patrick and then go scratch Patrick on his left arm. Go, show us what you can do. If you're so big, bad, and powerful, then, go over into the main inn, scratch Patrick on his left arm. Scott is very forceful about sending that away. We flip back and we see Tim take a chair and put it up underneath the door so that Patrick can't get out of the scrying room. And Patrick immediately says, did you just lock me in here? And Tim is like, yeah. We see Tim hear something, and I wasn't really sure what it was. However, he knew exactly what it was. He hears a REM pod, and it's going off in the seance room. He's placed a REM pod near the doll, and he walks, maybe a foot into the seance room and sees it going off. And so he says that, I really need to kind of figure this out. We then flash back to Scott. And Scott is walking around in the barn and says the energy totally feels different. He feels like whatever energy that was in the barn has left. So he takes out holy water and blesses the area and proceeds to, do that all over the barn. We then go to the camera of Patrick. And this is the first time, like I said, I've really seen scrying. I would like to know Patrick as far as scrying. Does he know what he's doing? Did they just kind of tell him? Did he read a book about it? What does Patrick know about this? Patrick, if you're out there listening, write me at paranormalreviewpod@gmail.com or hit me up on Twitter or Facebook, because I am interested in knowing what Patrick knew. But Patrick is intently looking into the mirror and is calling the entity out, talking about how he wants to see him. He wants him to, make his presence known. Well, we then flash to Tim, who's in the seance room, and he's talking to the doll and says, you scratched me earlier. We see the REM pod continue to go off. Um, we then see Tim get a spirit box and place it near the doll, and it goes back to Patrick, who is using provocation to, I don't know, entice a spirit to come through the mirror or to at least show themselves in the mirror. And then Tim basically says that he's getting a really weird feeling that he thinks there's a dark energy that's bouncing around, that it's going from room to room, and it's kind of toying with them. And I found it interesting that Tim asks, "What? Are you going to hurt one of us?" And through the spirit box, very clearly, I understood it. It says Patrick. And Tim says, "Are you going to scratch Patrick? Go scratch Patrick. He's waiting for you." So, I found it, looking back on it, that in the voiceover section, right after Tim does that, Tim says that this much energy may be getting out of control right now. And I thought that was a revealing look back, that after he had gotten away from this place and was doing the voiceovers for this particular episode, that he, looking back on it, could reveal that using that much energy and sending everything into one area or towards Patrick may, had a problem with getting out of control. So we see Tim then immediately go check on Patrick. And when Tim enters the room, the main room, where the scrying closet is, he hears a thud. And he goes and opens the door as Patrick is telling the entity, you're a coward. You're not wanting to show yourself. And Tim asks Patrick, "Did you hit the wall?" And Patrick says, "Yeah, I'm feeling a lot of raging anger." And Tim says, as Patrick steps out and gets some air and everything, he said, "In the mirror, I saw my reflection. And the more and more I looked at my reflection, I saw it morphing and changing into something that wasn't me." And they then walk outside, and Patrick kind of walks away, like I said, to kind of get some air. Montana looks at Tim and says, "When Patrick came out right now, I felt like there was a different energy. I still felt Patrick's normal energy. I recognized it as Patrick's energy, but I also felt like there was another energy around them." And that's when they flashed her name up on the screen, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Montana is the occultist, with nature and deities and gods, and she is very in tune to people's auras and their energy." And I am a skeptic, but I do believe that people do give off different energy. I mean, obviously we all give off a different energy when we're mad or when we're, sad or upset or something like that. So I do believe that there are people out there that are more sensitive to that, or more in tune, maybe to different people's energies or emotions and everything. And so I do believe that Montana could feel Patrick's normal energy, but as he said, he was raging with anger, so there's not a doubt that she also felt something else radiating off of him. So they decide to move phase 3, which in Tim's protocol is communication. And Tim says that he is starting to believe that the doll may be a portal. And so he really wants to see if that is it, so that they can bind the energy to the doll and then get rid of the doll. And I found that kind of to be interesting, because earlier they had talked about a scrying mirror being able to summon something through a scrying mirror. So I think that was interesting to me, because Tim didn't immediately think that it was the mirror. I think through his interactions with the doll, setting the REM pod up, setting the spirit box up, setting the digital recorder up, and getting different, forms of documentation, different evidence at different times, coming from well, let me back up. As far as he believed it was coming from the doll, that was leading them in that direction. So we see a timestamp then of 2 a.m. And he says he wants to do an ITC experiment, where he wants a camera on what is, where they're going to be concentrating, and it's going to feed into the TV, creating a loop. He wants to place a spirit box up on the top shelf above the doll, and he wants to be able to talk, and if there is a spirit or entity around the doll, that it can use the spirit box to communicate, but it can also use the TV to communicate. And so Michael then decides that a negative ion generator needs to be placed in there, because there's a theory in the paranormal community that negative ions are used to power things. And if there is an entity around, that it can take those negative ions and almost charge itself up. So they then explain that everybody's going to kind of be in there but Montana. Montana's going to stay out of the room and going to be at base camp monitoring the situation through camera, because someone needs to be doing that in case one of them would get attacked. And this is where they reveal that Montana is a pagan priestess, and that by being a pagan priestess, that she has been taught how to take and extract negative energy, but put in positive energy, so that if one of them would get attacked or get lashed out on or anything like that, that Montana has been trained in extracting that negative energy out of them and replacing it with positive energy. So immediately, Tim asks if the entity will talk in to the ghost box and show itself on TV. Well, I was getting ready to say they here, but no, I heard too. Tim, feel better. It was pretty clear. And it was one of the more clear EVPs and ghost box communications that I've heard on TV. Which, of course, immediately makes me skeptic. Because I'm thinking, if it comes through that clear for them, is it real? Because on all these other TV shows, you don't usually hear it that clear. They have to interpret it, or they have to slow it down, or speed it up, or reverse it, or put it through a machine, or whatever. But this one was fairly clear. And so that leads me to believe, one, being a skeptic, did they fake it? Two, I guess me also being a skeptic, does that make it more real? Are they really dealing with a strong entity or a demon or whatever you want to call it because it came through so clear? And so I guess that's where you're hearing me in these episodes straddle the line. Part of me wants to believe it's fake. It's garbage. They created that. It's entertainment. It's Hollywood. But then there's a religious part of me and a part of me that says, well, no. Tim has talked about how he's been doing this 20 years and this is about as powerful as he, has felt. And so is that what's making it clear? But Tim immediately says, well, why do you want me to feel better? And we don't get an answer. Tim says, what are you going to do if I pick up the doll? And it comes through pain. Now, that part I didn't hear, or I didn't understand. I heard something, but couldn't make it out or anything. They said it said pain. And then after it said break him. And again, didn't really understand that one either. And Tim says, all right, well, okay, I'm going to pick up the doll. So they flash to Montana outside, and she says, I'm a little concerned about Tim handling this doll, that it could really get this entity very upset, and it could scratch them, it could make them sick, that some haunted objects that entities are around or live in can even lead to possession. I'm not sure that Tim needs to be doing this. So Tim hasn't picked up the doll yet, and he says, do you want this? And he is holding a rosary in front of the doll, and in the area where he thinks the entity may be. And I heard it and could make it out very clearly through the ghost box. It says, keep it. And I can imagine that if I was an evil entity, I would not want the rosary. But as soon as they hear keep it, Tim then puts the rosary actually on the doll and says, all right, I'm going to pick the doll up. So Tim moves the doll, and as he is picking it up, the TV just starts freaking out. You're seeing shadows. Before, it was the same screen. It was a jumbled, staticky type screen. But when the TV starts freaking out, you can see black going across the screen and everything. And Tim ends up actually moving the doll out into the living room, taking it completely out of the seance room and down the hall to the living room, and puts it in a seat. And after he does that, Tim says, look, I'm feeling sick. I need to step out. I need to take a break. And Michael looks at him and says, it could be from the evil energy of the doll. And I wanted to say, yeah. I am a chicken and would not have done that, because even though I'm a skeptic and don't know that I believe in this, I still don't want to play with the unknown. I still have a healthy fear of the unknown. And so, Michael saying, well, this could have been from you messing with the doll. Yeah, I think I would have said that too. But anyway, Michael decides that he needs to focus and enhance the energy. So he gets out looks like it's wrapped up, but as he unravels it, it is a set of tuning forks. And he says what he's going to do is tap these tuning forks and place it on the doll to draw the energy out. So Patrick and Scott especially says that he wants to record an EVP session while they're doing this. So Michael uses different tuning forks at different times to tap, make different sounds, and draw out different energy, and you can hear the sounds of what the blue tuning fork is making and what the different color tuning forks are making. And at one point, he taps a tuning fork and places it on the doll's forehead, and we see Michael fall over. And he tells Scott that he is physically ill, and Scott decides, look, I want to play this recorder, see if we got any EVPs. And on the recorder, you hear something from below. You hear Tim. I need Tim. And then at one point, Michael asks, what will make you leave Tim alone? And when they play the recorder, it says Dead on the Floor, which is how they got the episode title. But at that point in time, yes, I probably would have been dead serious. And but I guess when I'm watching this, I'm thinking, I don't know. It seems like it lashed out at Michael way more than it did Tim. It seems like it actually kind of likes Tim. It wants Tim to feel better. It wants, it's saying, I need Tim. It's actually lashed out at Michael. So watching it, was a little more concerned about Michael. However, they appear to be very concerned about Tim. So they go outside and they update Tim. And Tim says, I really think that we need to talk to Joanne, update her, and then she really needs to make a decision. That we are, pretty close to sure that this doll is haunted. It has some kind of entity possessing it, and we need to know if she wants the doll actually removed. And Tim, tells the team that he hopes that Joanne makes that choice, because otherwise it's just going to continue to affect her and her guests and her friends and family in negative ways. So we see him go over to Joanne and explain things to her. And he tells her he believes the doll just needs to be removed. And he says, would you like for Montana to do this? And I was watching Joanne. I'll just be very honest with you. Because earlier, he had brought it up that they might need to, remove this entity. And I told you that there's a lot of places that are supposedly evil, scary, haunted, whatever word you want to use for, that the owners don't have anything done because they want to make money off of it. They want to invite people in and let them have these evil experiences, these nightmares, these getting scratched, pushed, shoved, whatever. And so I really was watching Joanne's face. And as soon as he said this, it was a look of what I interpreted to be, I don't know. But her first words were, I'm kind of torn about this. But then she immediately says, yes, I want you guys to bond it. I want it gone. So we get another timestamp of 4:48. And Tim goes over and Montana says, is she okay with me bonding the doll before we remove the doll? And Tim says, do whatever you need to do in order for the energy not to escape it. So they've been using the word bind continuously in this episode. And I'm like, I don't really know what that entails. I don't know that I've ever seen this on paranormal TV. I don't know that I've really ran across any articles or podcasts or anything where people are really describing what this actually means. And so Montana kind of goes through it for me here, and I'm like, Montana is everything. She is not only going to rescue us from this situation, she's going to explain things to me as she does it. So I'm like, props to Montana. And so she says, number one, I need to draw all of the negative energy into the doll. I need for the entity to be in the doll. And then I actually want to take and bind through prayer, spell, whatever, but I also am taking physically and binding the doll. And then we can remove the doll. And Tim says, that's cool. I'm going to take it to my storage building with all the other haunted objects that I collected until we can figure out what we're going to do with it. And that immediately is like, I don't know, a big floodlight to me. I'm like, number one, where is the storage building? And number two, why is Tim keeping it? Why is he keeping haunted objects? And three, when is he going to decide what to do with these things? Why are we allowing them all to play together? Why are we having them, be together? And when are we going to make decisions on what to do with this? If this stuff is real, it needs to go away. Because that's the stuff that scares me. That's the stuff my nightmares are made of, and I don't want any part of that. So I'm thinking, need to talk to Tim Wood. I need to make a note. I need to contact Tim Wood and get him on that. He needs to drop everything he's doing and think about how he's going to remove these things. But anyway, like I said, there are 4 phases in Tim's protocol, and his last one is confrontation. And so we see Montana go in, she states that to the doll, that as a pagan priestess, she has the authority to extract negative energies and invoke positive energies. And she starts her ritual. We see her making a salt circle and then, saying, I don't know what she calls them. I want to say that I don't want to offend anyone or upset anyone that's listening to this. So I am going to profess my ignorance right now. I don't know what you call what Montana is doing. I don't want to call it prayer if it's not. So I don't know whether she is praying, she is talking or addressing or asking, chanting. I don't know exactly what it is called in her paganism. So you do hear her asking deities and gods to help her and to give her power and things like that. And then we see her physically bind the doll with what appears to be, I don't know whether it is a tough kind of plastic coated rope or something like that. She literally binds the doll's legs and arms and things, and then she covers the doll with a cloth, wraps it, and puts it in a case that Tim has nearby, and they immediately shut the case and do the latches on it. And then at 5:41 a.m., we see Joanne say, she hopes that the spirits that her guests come there for, that the ones that they love to interact with, the ones that they love to have experiences with, will come back now. Because this dark energy they have actually taken away, and it won't oppress them anymore, and that the good spirits that she had at the Black Swan Inn will actually come back and start interacting, because I truly feel like Joanne misses them. And Tim almost reassures her and says, the smell that I smelled in the inn when I first walked in is gone. And the energy that I felt in the different rooms is gone. And he thanks her for, allowing them to come in and do this for them. And, then the show ends, which leaves me to be like, because, as I've told you in previous episodes, I don't know what to believe. And that's kind of how I feel after this episode. I kind of feel like I felt the first time we watched It Feels Evil together in episode 1. I feel like this show is very entertaining. It's very intriguing. It makes me think. I find out it seems like something new every time I watch this. And, I don't profess to be a paranormal expert or even a paranormal anything. I am totally new to this. So I feel like I learned something new that the paranormal community believes in, or that they interact with, or whatever. So after this show, I guess I'm left with almost the same exact feeling that I had from episode 1, is that I find it extremely entertaining. It's interesting. It brings up questions that I want answers to, or I get questions during the episode and they eventually answer them. I like that. I like learning from my TV shows, paranormal or not. I like learning something. I feel like I grow as a person when that happens. So that's what I actually liked about this. Now, what I didn't like, I guess that uneasy feeling where I don't know whether it's real or not. I think it's that this particular show walks that line for me. If you've listened to the previous episodes, then you know there's some shows that I make fun of, or some shows that I definitely feel like are not real. I feel like they are, they are definitely entertainment. But I think this show, it walks that edge for me where I'm like, you know what? I don't know. Could I believe in this? Yes, definitely. Do I want to experience this? No! No, you guys know I'm a chicken. No way! So I am looking forward to seeing episode 3. No, it's not going to be the next episode of this podcast, but I can almost guarantee you it's going to be really soon, just because, like I said, they haven't made any other episodes, and that way, we can clear it off my DVR, and then we can move on to other TV shows. But I like this show. I wish Travel Channel would bring it back if it's going to be like these first 2 episodes. Now, let's talk about us. Number one, I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode and going on this journey with me. Number 2, as always, if you have any questions, comments, problems, or protests, or you want to teach me something, or you want to correct me in any way, hit me up on paranormalreviewpod@gmail.com. That is singular. paranormalreviewpod@gmail.com, or hit me up on Paranormal Review on Twitter or on Facebook. Don't forget that on Facebook, I am connecting you to other pages that are doing live investigations, live interviews, live EVP sessions, spirit box sessions, connecting you to different articles, plus giving you updates on all the different TV shows. Destination Fear this week started. So last week we showed all the different upcoming things. So make sure that you're hitting us up on Paranormal Review on Facebook to keep up on all the latest TV show stuff. But I want to thank you guys, and I hope to be talking to you soon.